Hi everyone! For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bryce Ward and I chose an article on the carnivorous pitcher plants that use acoustic reflections to attract bats. The article is called Bats Are Acoustically Attracted to Mutualistic Carnivorous Plants. It appeared in Current Biology in July of 2015. So this study takes place on the island of Borneo, which is just above Australia here, you can see. And there's Indonesia, India, and there are these species of pitcher plants which are carnivorous, and a species of bat, the Caryvola hardwicki, small woolly bat that uses echolocation to find the pitcher plants, Nepenthes hemsleana elongana. So here you can see it's sort of a little bit of a diagram of the bat inside the pitcher plant as a drawing. So carnivorous plants eat other living things, often insects, small mammals, small amphibians, small birds, smaller things that they can fit. And the way it works is they have this fluid-filled cavity here, and that cup has this digestive fluid in it that traps food. So something will fall into the pitcher, and then it won't be able to climb out again, and the plant will slowly digest it with that fluid. Now, this species of bat has evolved a mutualistic relationship with the pitcher plant, where the plant provides a safe place for the bats to roost during the day. And in exchange, the bat's feces has high levels of nitrogen, and that nitrogen can really help the plant, and it can actually increase nitrogen intake in the plant by an average of 34%. From their feces. And then this is sort of a diagram that just sort of shows you that digestive fluid. So you can see in this plant, this is a completely different species. The digestive fluid is all the way up here. But in the plant that houses the bat, the fluid is all the way down there so that it doesn't accidentally eat the bat or digest it. So the bat still has a safe, dry place to roost. In the study, they were examining how this works and what structures the plant might have. Their hypothesis was that Nepenthes hemsleana has evolved an elongated concave structure, this right here, and that structure is designed to reflect the bat's echolocation and help to guide the bats to the pitcher. So they predict that the bats should be more attracted to the pitchers that have this structure, this reflector piece, than the plants that don't, and that the bats should be able to find the pitchers in dense vegetation, because otherwise it doesn't do much good if you can't find your home when it's in a dense forest, which is where it lives. Here I have a video. So they're showing the time it takes for bats to search. They put them in their little experiment place with the mesh sides, and they have a unmodified pitcher plant hidden there in the bushes, and they're timing it to see how long it takes the bat to find the plant. And so this one's just normal, unmodified. Let's see if we can skip ahead a little. Wait, there's the bat. And he crawls inside. Cute little bat. And this video is showing how the bats, so in the second part of the experiment, after they had timed how long it took the bats to find each of the different modifications of plant, they set up an experiment to see which one the bat chose to roost in. So here you have the unmodified original looking plant, and here they enlarged that reflector. They added that extra piece to make it easier to be reflected. Here they reduced the reflector, they got rid of parts of it, and in this one they removed that reflecting piece completely. And they wanted to see which ones the bat would choose once they had an idea of how long it took the bats to find each of them. If they were all laid out in front of them, which one would the bat choose to roost in? And again, let's speed up a little bit. And there it goes. So this image just sort of shows you the idea. This is what that reflector structure looks like. And this is a different species. That's the Hemsleana, the one that the bats roost in. This is the Rafflesiana, which is a different species of pitcher plant that looks very similar to the other one, but does not house bats or have an area for them to roost. So you can see that since this one isn't attracting bats, it doesn't have that designed reflective structure, whereas the Hemsleana for the bats has that structure there. This figure from the article is showing they used a device to measure how the sound waves bounced off of the pitcher on the plant. And in the Hemsleana, which the bats roost in, you can see that the sound waves penetrate deeper into the actual pitcher of the plant, whereas in the Rafflesiana, it doesn't go in nearly as it doesn't have nearly as much depth for sound wave reflection. And this image is showing how, as the bat's approaching and it's farther away, the call is originally hitting the upper back of that reflecting part, and then once it gets closer, the sound sort of hits the back at the same level, sort of at the bottom of that reflector piece. And then once the back gets really close and starts to go inside, the echolocation calls actually bounce off the inside of the pitcher, and it allows them to determine which one is the right plant. So they're only going into the correct species. And this figure shows they recorded a bunch of different bat sonar calls, echolocation, and this is all the different frequencies that they recorded. This right here is an example, section B, is an example of what a bat call looks like. So there are programs that run the sounds of bats, and that's what a bat echolocation sonar call would look like. And here it's showing the range of the bat call, sort of the direction and width that call went, and you can see on the plant there it's sort of showing how far their call can hit. And this figure shows that the first part of the experiment, they simply timed all the bats to see how long it took them to find each plant. And you can see here the plants that had a removed reflector took significantly longer for the bats to find it without that reflector piece than it did for the bats with the unmodified plant or the plant with the enlarged reflector. And you can see here they did find that the bats were able to find that enlarged reflector plant faster than they could find the normal unmodified one. But when they then tested them by laying all the different plants out to see which one they chose, the bats preferentially preferred this unmodified normal plant. They couldn't recognize this enlarged one as the correct species, and even though it was easier to find, they elected not to roost in it. So in conclusion, their hypothesis was correct. The bats did choose the plant. They did have an easier time finding the plants with the larger reflector, and they were able to find them in the dense vegetation. Now, they found the enlarged reflector plant was easiest for them to find, and they found it the fastest, but they preferred the unmodified pitcher for roosting because that was the one that they could identify as a real as their correct species and their correct home. And they also concluded that the evolution of the reflector in this plant, that reflector has helped the bats to find the correct plant, and without that reflector piece, the plants would not be able to take advantage of their mutualistic relationship and gain those valuable nutrients. So, by evolving a structure that allows the bats to find them, it has made it much easier for the bats to find the plant, and then they can get that valuable nitrogen from the bats' feces. This study is significant for several reasons. It was the first study to prove plant evolution that to prove that plants could evolve to attract bats for a purpose other than pollination. A lot of plants are pollinated by bats, specifically a lot of cactuses in deserts, but this was the first time they were able to prove that plants have evolved to attract bats for something that wasn't pollination related. It was also the first study to prove plant evolution in terms of acoustic reflection outside of the neotropics, and they proved that there is a convergent structure occurring in the bat pollinated neotropic angiosperms, so that's pollination, and the paleotropic, where we were in Borneo, carnivorous plants that can reflect the bat's echolocation calls. So these structures evolved in the two different geographical locations to reflect the bat's echolocation calls in a manner that didn't relate to pollination. And that's a really cool finding. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I look forward to answering all of your questions. Thanks!